All right, so I got a couple spreadsheets here that I'm going to share that demonstrate that our wages over time are going to continue going down and down and down in real terms. And it's a very hard concept to wrap your head around. But once you get to this point, I think within Bitcoin and your Bitcoin journey, you'll never look at Bitcoin the same. Because most Bitcoiners, for the most part, cheer on the price going up. They spend a lot of time looking at the charts, looking at the prices, wanting their net worth to increase. But what I'm going to show you here is that we shouldn't be in so much of a rush. So basically what I'm going to look at here is I'm going to take the average person's salary. I'm going to take out the monthly expenses. I'm going to show how much is left over. And then I'm going to show how much we earn today, how much we earned 2 years ago, and how much we might earn in 2 years from now in real terms, in terms of Bitcoin. So this is a very important concept, I think, for everybody to wrap their head around. So let me bring up this spreadsheet here. So you can see here, I got two columns. One is annual and one is monthly. I started with an average salary of $80,000. And this is actually going to be US, I think, because that's the price of Bitcoin that I have here. So let's just assume this is the US dollar, somebody in the USA. And I think that's probably pretty high in terms of the average salary. I'm thinking it's probably closer to 65 or 70. But for this example, we'll use 80. So that is about $6,500 a month. And if you take out your taxes, your house, your car, fuel, insurance, food, property tax, and utilities, you're left with about $1,000 each month. Honestly, I think that that's best case. Some of these numbers are very conservative in terms of the car, fuel, insurance, food. Been to a grocery store lately? This is pretty low, I think, right now. But again, this is just going to be for simplicity, using a nice clean number of $1,000 per month. This is kind of going to be your take home. So this is for like your average employee, but you could also look at this as a contractor or a consultant, or if you do kind of work on your own, you're your own boss, you're self-employed. Somebody gives you $1,000 for a job, or $1,500 less some tax. How much Bitcoin can you get with that? How much real wage did you earn from doing that job? That's essentially what we're looking at here. So based on that, we got a Bitcoin price of $95,000. So with that, again, this is a little bit conservative, but it's still, the average person right now would take 8 years to get to one Bitcoin at current wages and current Bitcoin price. But as we know, this price will probably appreciate in the future if the first 16 years of Bitcoin are any indication of that. Plus, you have to remember that it's easy to look back at historical data in Bitcoin from the last 16 years and assume that it's probably going to be the same in the future. It's also very easy to question the fact that just because it happened doesn't mean it's going to happen in the future. But we also have to take into consideration here that there's about 1% of the world's population who currently owns Bitcoin. 1%. Which means that there's still 99% of the population who is yet to buy their first amount of Bitcoin or Satoshis. And for anybody who might not know out there what a Satoshi is, it's a unit of Bitcoin. It's every one Bitcoin has 100 million Satoshis inside of that. So think of it like dollars and cents, exact same thing. And I should preface this whole thing with, yes, it's going to take a very long time to get to one whole Bitcoin if that is your goal. But I don't think that has to be everybody's goal. I think that the number of people who end up owning one whole Bitcoin are going to be incredibly scarce. My estimates, I think there's about 950,000 people who own one Bitcoin right now. I do not anticipate that number to go up. I think it's just going to go down and down and down. So I'm pretty sure we peaked with less than 1 million people on Earth holding one whole Bitcoin right now. So again, don't let this discourage you. You can compound this. You can buy small amounts every week, every month, and just get as much as you can. Just keep trading your fake illusionary printable money that somebody else can create and trade that in for real assets like Bitcoin that nobody can print more of forever. So let's scroll down a little bit here. So again, we got our monthly budget for Bitcoin. This is our leftover amount here. And keep in mind that I didn't put any fun on here. There's no line for fun or holidays or anything like that. This is pretty much just your basic needs. And you got $1,000 left over at the end of every month if you're lucky, which is completely insane, but it is the reality of where we are right now. So let's take a look at this. This is the little chart that I came up with to show just how today is the best time to be buying Bitcoin, and you should be doing everything that you can to stack as hard as you possibly can right now. So here's our salary. I should maybe add some dollar signs to this so it looks a little bit more legitimate. That's our salary per month, $1,000 or per job. Again, if you're self-employed, somebody paid you $1,000 for a job you just did. So this is when the price, let's take the first line here, when the price was $40,000. And we're sitting at about $100,000 today. But it wasn't that long ago when one Bitcoin was $40,000. I think it was about 2 years ago or less. So 2 years ago, you went to your job, you worked the whole month, whatever it is you do, every single day you showed up, maybe took a couple long coffee breaks, maybe you slacked around a little bit after the Christmas season, but you showed up to work and you got paid $1,000 for everything that you did in that month. That was kind of your leftover amount. You put that into Bitcoin. For that, you got 2.5 million sats, which is quite a bit. That was less than 2 years ago. So again, you show up to your job, you do the work, you get paid. The leftover amount goes into Bitcoin. You get 2.5 million sats. Fast forward to about a year later. Show up at the same job, do the same work, exact same thing, except the price of Bitcoin went up a little bit, 58,000. We were stuck at 58,000 for what felt like a decade. It was probably about 3 or 4 months, but 58K. And so now you trade that, your time and energy at your job, and you buy Bitcoin with that. Now you only get 1.7 million sats. That doesn't even seem like that much of a difference there, really. 40,000 to 58,000. But you got just under 1 million sats less for the exact same job. So we got one at 80 here, similar, but let's focus on right here. This is where we are today. So you show up January 2025, you're all excited, you got some New Year's resolutions, you're working pretty hard. You go to work, do your job, exact same job that you did 2 years ago. Same position, maybe you get paid a little bit more now, so these amounts might be skewed a little bit in terms of your wages, but your wage probably went up, but your costs also went up as well. So your disposable amount might actually be less than it was 2 years ago based on the price increase for people storing their time and energy in dollars. So now, again, you go to the same job, same work, you get $1,000 left over, you want to buy some sats with that. What do you get now? 1 million sats. Pretty stark difference there in 2 years, where the exact same job you would have got 2.5 million sats. Now you're getting about 1 million sats. So essentially your value in real terms has dropped by more than 100%, cut in half or more than that, 2.5 to 1. That is insane. So that's kind of where we are today. That's the opportunity that we've had for these last couple of years. Well, everybody was so concerned with, will we hit 100K? What's the price going to do after the election? Well, everybody's so obsessed with the price going up. What we should have been doing is getting as many of these sats as we possibly could while we could. There's a common phrase that says, make hay while the sun is shining. Well, the sun was shining. The sun still is shining today. But let's look at what could happen here in the future if the price of Bitcoin continues to go up. Again, just because it's happened historically doesn't mean it will happen in the future. But if you look at any adoption of new technology and anything new in life, it usually takes some time, and it usually follows the same kind of adoption curve. It's called the S curve. And we're at the very beginning of that because, again, there's only 1% of people approximately who have Bitcoin. And I would argue that it's much less than 1% of people who actually understand Bitcoin. So this adoption hasn't even happened yet. So will the price of Bitcoin go up in the coming years? Probably. Now that we have Larry Fink of BlackRock, we have Donald Trump, the most influential guy on the planet, talking about Bitcoin. Financial advisors, banks can now custody it. There's an ETF. Public companies are starting to add it to their balance sheet. 29 states within the US is in the process of buying Bitcoin for their treasury. So it's pretty safe to assume that this number is going to go up here in the future, barring anything crazy. So let's fast forward. Let's these ones are pretty conservative, 125, 150. They still show quite a drop though. But let's go to 500,000 here. Let's look at that one. So 500,000 I think would be very normal. I think it would actually be a disappointment to a lot of people within these next couple of years based on the halving cycle and what has happened in previous cycles. So $500,000 Bitcoin. You go to work, you do the exact same job. You get your $1,000 paycheck. Your leftover amount is $1,000. You go into your Bitcoin Well exchange and buy some Bitcoin. What do you get now? 200,000 sats for the exact same work, exact same effort exerted. You get 2,000 sats for it now. Or today you get 1 million. But the higher this thing goes, the less your time is going to be worth in real terms in a real asset like Bitcoin. So that's 500,000. What about 2 million? This would actually be a fairly normal price for Bitcoin to hit this cycle. Again, based on historical data. Plus, now we got BlackRock's, governments, public companies, AIs are now accepting Bitcoin. It's kind of a big deal. I think that it's probably going to be a small part of our future is the AI and AI agents who are going to be accepting Bitcoin and paying each other in Bitcoin. So the demand is going to keep going up here. This is a very normal $2 million Bitcoin. So you go to work, you get $1,000. You work just as hard. You exert the exact same amount of energy, your time. You get $1,000. You buy some Bitcoin. You get 50,000 sats now. It's kind of depressing, truly. It's pretty depressing. So the exact same work, exact same effort gets you 50,000 sats now, which is what, as a percentage of where we are today, 4%. That is crazy. So you go to work, you do the exact same job. Again, I know I'm sounding like a broken record here, but I really want to drill that home. Nothing's changed. Nothing changed. You might have got a promotion. The cost of your living might have went up a little bit. It probably nets out. So you're doing the exact same thing, but now you're getting paid 4% of what you did before. And you can see here the $10 million Bitcoin and the $100 million Bitcoin and how much you get for that. So we don't need to really go into that. That might be in a decade or two from now. But it still goes to show, even between $100,000 Bitcoin and a very reasonable amount, I would say $2 million Bitcoin, you're going to get paid 4% of the real wages that you're earning today. So what does that mean for the average person then? I mean, it is pretty depressing. It's kind of discouraging, to be completely honest with you. But at the same time, I think we just have to have some urgency here. And maybe that means working a second job. Maybe that means in the mornings and at night, you start doing a side hustle where you can earn some extra fiat that can be converted into Bitcoin. Maybe you spend a couple weekends here, especially if you're in Canada in this wintertime, there's not a whole lot of other things to do. Maybe you just look around your house for a couple weeks and start listing things. Maybe you make a couple $1,000 and look at, in terms of sats, look at it the exact same way and how much sats those items are worth today versus how much they'd be worth in 2 or 3 years from now if you procrastinate on selling some of the items around your house that you don't necessarily use anymore. So have a bit of urgency here. Stack as many sats as you possibly can. It's never going to be easier to put a dent in your family's future in terms of holding Bitcoin. And the last thing I would say is if you are somebody who already has some Bitcoin and a sizable amount of Bitcoin, look at something like this and understand how valuable, scarce, and how much you should be, how much time and energy you should be putting into securing that Bitcoin. So if it's on an exchange, if it's on a wallet like Ledger or a Tangem or something that kind of keeps you up at night, take some action now. Get yourself a hardware device. If you need to, move it into like a multi-sig. Take this stuff very seriously because this is what's coming here. When the other 99% of people show up, those sats that you're holding today are going to be incredibly valuable. Plus, if you consider the AI stuff and the AI agents who are going to be paid in Bitcoin. Think about the leverage that you're going to have in the future with the Bitcoin that you do have today. So stack as hard as you can, and whatever sats you do have today, make sure that you're doing everything that you can to keep those sats safe. So I hope you enjoyed this. It's a bit of an eye-opener, but it's reality.